my son Daaron and I were going out for a walk. This is articulated in the first part of this article that's been distributed to you. He was about 5 years old. And he's been my #1 learning partner since he was born. As I said, he's the one that persuaded me that all human beings are born learning-oriented, deeply, pervasively. That's what's generatively coming out of them at the moment that they're born, is to extend themselves that way. And though we have lots of dialogues and we have lots of conversations, I never kind of raised the flag about all this stuff with him. It's just part of the background, the way it works between us. So he doesn't understand what I do. He just thinks that's the way the world is, you know. One day, he was about 5 years old. One evening, we were going out for a walk. And he showed up at the door with this in his hand. Little constructs thing. He's always building something. And I said, he said to me, I want to bring this new invention with me, Dad. I said, okay. Normally we don't like bringing things along because they're distracting. And nighttime is just a wonderful time for walking with children because the cars are down, the city, you know, the suburb, depending on where you live, it's just quieter, you know. And so 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock is just a great time to go wandering around. You can learn a lot of stuff about what's going on in the world without all the noise distracting. And of course, Daaron is calmed down. He's kind of taken the hyper edge off by that time. So he's much more hyper than I am. So we're going out for a walk, and he's bringing this thing along. And we went out for a walk, and for a while I didn't even think about it. And about 20 minutes into the walk, 30 minutes, something like that, I forget exactly how long, he pulled this thing out. And I remember kind of wondering whether this was, because he's into the Ghostbusters. He was into at the time, he's not anymore, but at the time he was in the Ghostbusters. And if you ever saw that movie or anything, you know that they make these kind of PK valence meters, which detect ectoplasmic residue, which is slime, right? And so I wasn't sure whether this was a slime meter or what, you know, it could have been anything. Or maybe it was some kind of a sword, right? But it turned out when he pulled it out of his pocket and started to use it, he went down into what I call his curiosity crouch, which is just beautiful. He kind of goes down into his ankles like this, right? And there was this bug on the ground, and he put this between himself and the bug, the way Sherlock Holmes uses a magnifying glass. And he started to make all these sounds and clicks and whirs and stuff. And then he went on to play computer voice and articulate the sound of this thing talking to him as it described the inner workings of this bug. And he said, Dad, look, you know, and he showed me on the make-believe display screen, the inside of this roly-poly bug. And he went on to describe the anatomy of roly-poly bugs and how it was a really intelligent, I mean, it was much better than a snail. I had to carry this thing around all the time. He could roll up when he needed it and not roll up when he didn't want it. And he had this big, long thing he discovered about roly-poly bugs. But the point was this. He called it a radar helper, which I thought was incredibly good 5-year-old language for a device that would shoot some beam into something, figure out whatever it was, and then bring it back, display it. If you will, it was a multimedia magnifying glass. A 5-year-old invented this. He didn't know what I was up to, but he invented this. And as soon as he got done with the bug, he was really on about it. Now he'd come to that point where he was ready to tell me about it. And so he pointed at telephone poles and at stars and at trees, and it became a kind of a dialogue prop for him to be able to say to me whatever it was he was curious or uncertain about, and use this thing to focus himself on his own uncertainties or curiosities. This is a little toy, right? Now, I've been building a version of the radar helper for a long time. And so it just stunned me. I mean, I needed a wheelbarrow to get home in. I was so just knocked over by it. And he said, Dad, don't you think every kid should have one of these? And I really do, you know. And what I think caused him to invent this and why he likes to play with it, and he's building a new version now, was the notion that that he could follow through with the very things we were talking about this morning, the kind of curiosities and uncertainties, that he had a prop that would allow him to focus himself on where he was curious or uncertain and play it out. And that it occurs to me then, now, and at all times that children are so thirsty, so hungry for being responded to at the level that these needs are occurring. You know, that's how they grow up. That's how they learn to walk. All the things we've been talking about. It works for them. It's the nature of their human beingness that they've learned how to tune and instrument this whole flowing impulse nervous system we've been describing until they bump into the world of structured adult land, the things organized by an adult brain, an education system designed to produce adult brains that doesn't unfold any of the world as if it was important enough to unfold it in a way that they could actually stay with it, that they could use themselves and extend themselves into it. And so he invented this as a kind of way to tell me that what we've been talking about all morning, that children are hungry for this kind of responsiveness.